Well, it's Saturday, and welcome to the Merriman Market Analyst and Fun Astrology Financial episode that we do every Saturday, reading the free weekly column from MMAcycles.com. Hi, I'm Thomas Miller. Thank you for joining us. If you heard last Saturday's episode, you know that it was prophetic from what happened this week. So let's dive in. The newsletter for the week August 7th being recorded on Saturday, August 5th. First, a news quote from the Wall Street Journal on Tuesday, August 1st. Fitch Ratings downgraded the United States government's credit rating weeks after President Biden and congressional Republicans came to the brink of a historic default, warning about the growing debt burden and political dysfunction in Washington. Fitch said Tuesday that the downgrade reflects an erosion of governance in the United States relative to other top-tier economies over the last 2 decades. Biden administration officials criticized Fitch's decision, blaming governance problems on the Trump administration and arguing that the U.S. was not at risk of missing its debt payments. End quote. And now this from Dr. Paul Donovan from the UBS Morning Audio Comment on Wednesday, August 2nd. He says one of the credit rating agencies, it doesn't matter which, downgraded the U.S. government from something, it doesn't matter what, to something else. Markets care about the fiscal position of the United States and the repeated farce of the debt ceiling debacle. They do not care what credit rating agencies think about the matter. And then, rounding out the week on Friday from CNBC.com, non-farm payrolls expanded by 187,000 for the month, slightly below the Dow Jones estimate for 200,000. Though the headline number was a miss, it actually represented a modest gain from the downwardly revised 185,000 for June. The unemployment rate was 3.5% against a consensus estimate that the jobless level would hold steady at 3.6%. That rate is just above the lowest level since late 1969. End quote. Ray says world equity markets reacted very closely to the planetary themes in the heavens. That is, most indices made new cycle and in several cases yearly highs within 2 days of Mars forming a favorable waxing trine with Jupiter on Tuesday, August 1st. But by the end of the week, as the Sun approached its waxing square to Jupiter, most had commenced sharp declines. In Asia and the Pacific Rim, the trading was mostly similar. New cycle highs or double tops formed on July 31st or August 1st as Mars trined Jupiter. Most then fell somewhat sharply into Thursday and Friday, August 3rd and 4th. One exception was India's Nifty Index, which made an all-time high on July 20th and has declined all the way through Friday, August 4th, the end of last week. China's Shanghai Composite also differed at the end of the week when it rallied into a secondary high rather than falling into a new low. In Europe, the German DAX made an all-time high on Monday the 31st. Netherlands AEX soared to its highest mark in 18 months the Friday before on July 28th. The Zurich SMI and London FTSE also made cycle highs the prior week, July 27th and 28th. But all 4 indices sold off sharply into Thursday and Friday, August 3rd and 4th. In the Americas, there were noticeable differences on recent highs. The Dow Jones Industrial Average made a new yearly high on Monday, August 1st. The S&P made its yearly high the week before, July 27th. The Nasdaq's yearly high was back on July 19th, just prior to Venus turning retrograde. All 3 declined sharply into Thursday, August 3rd. On news of the payroll reports, all rallied sharply the first half of the day, but then started another sharp sell-off afterwards, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average and S&P falling to new weekly lows. This type of intermarket bearish divergence is often a sign of lower prices to come, and may be much lower prices if next week, August 9th, Venus-Uranus square is a breakout instead of a reversal. Other markets also exhibited notable geocosmic reactions last week. Crude oil soared to $83.24 on Friday, challenging its yearly high of $83.52 back on April 12th. Just 5 weeks ago, it was trading around $67, and it was reported that the U.S. had not replenished its strategic petroleum reserves as announced it would earlier in the year when crude oil dropped to $62 to $67. But apparently that wasn't done. So the reserves remain at or near their lowest levels in many years, down to 346.7 million barrels at the end of July, well off its recent high of over 650 million barrels in 2020. That's according to ycharts.com. Gold and silver fell to new major cycle lows in Friday's pre-market trade as heliocentric Mercury started its trek through Sagittarius. This planet-sign combination has approximately a 75% correlation to rising gold prices for a few days. Silver is following the same path as gold, having now dropped about 50% of its recent rally into the major high cycle of 2547 on July 20th, as Venus was about to turn retrograde. Copper has also declined from its recent cycle crest on July 19th. Soybeans also fell sharply from its recent high on July 24th, right after Venus turned retrograde. Bitcoin and Ethereum may have made trading cycle lows last Tuesday, August 1st. In summary, Venus retrograde on July 22nd, followed by the Mars-Jupiter trine and the full moon on August 1st, Tuesday, approaching its square with Jupiter on August 7th, are coinciding closely to cycle turns of importance. And now this week's short-term Geocosmics, we turn to Peggy Noonan. Her article on the Wall Street Journal August 5th, Donald Trump, she says, is now criminally charged for actions taken before and after January 6, 2021. He is accused of directing a conspiracy to subvert the Constitution with an intent to retain power after losing the 2020 presidential election. For 7 years, Democrats have scored Republican office holders for not wanting to talk about Donald Trump. Why do they concede nothing about Hunter, not even admitting the perceptions are bad? Why aren't they honestly troubled? Mainstream media has work to do. This is a story. Let the chips fall where they may. End quote. Ray says, the movements in the cosmos are very complex right now. Venus retrograde is doing what Venus is known to do, deciding to be indecisive, forever seeing pros and cons to all things. It doesn't help that Jupiter is part of the issue today, moving from a favorable waxing trine aspect with Mars last Tuesday, August 1st, to a challenging square aspect with the Sun on August 6th and 7th, Sunday and Monday, depending on your time zone. Both aspects have a high correlation to sharp price moves and sudden reversals within 4 trading days, which is happening from the cycle high in stocks on Monday, August 1st, as we now approach Monday, August 7th. Next up will be the unpredictable Venus-Uranus square, the second of 3 of these passages between early July and September. The first pass on July 3rd correlated with a new yearly high in equities, followed by a somewhat sharp 1-week decline. Then it was off to the races and new highs. Uranus, in aspect to any planet, is unpredictable because it can either be a reversal within 4 trading days or a breakout if trading is near the primary cycle lows or highs. The second passage in a 3-passage series is usually the most pronounced and correlates with the most dramatic moves of the 3 passes. Will it be a reversal or a breakout? On top of that, Venus retrograde will reach its midpoint as it conjoins the Sun next weekend, and that's often another period indicative of market reversals, plus or minus 2 days. Now, you might think that Uranus would take a break after that, but it doesn't. August 2023 is the month for Uranus upheavals, whether in the financial markets, personal relationships, broken agreements, or natural earthbound upheavals like earthquakes, hurricanes, and tornadoes. And yes, it can also correspond to new announcements regarding innovations in artificial intelligence or new discoveries in other branches of science or outer space. But it can also indicate revelations and or acts of terrorism when and where no one expects it. On August 16th, the Sun will make its opening square to Uranus, the same day that Mars will make a trine with the planet of disruption. Then, on August 28th, Uranus turns stationary retrograde, one of the very strongest reversals uncovered in our published research studies. This new month is not likely to be serene and quiet. Financial markets are more likely to continue to reflect the turbulence suggested by Uranus's activity in the cosmos. This is likely to be a month of great risks, but if one's timing is good, these risks can be very profitable. If not, the losses can mount. Better to have both a plan and a backup plan in case things don't go as expected. And be ready to support your local chiropractor. Whipsaws are second nature when Uranus looms large. And oh yes, Uranus rules astrology. So one thing that might be expected is media attention to those who understand the relationship between cycles in the cosmos and cycles in human activity. Who else can adequately explain the insanity and drama of today's polarized political landscape and of the problems besetting the two frontrunners of the U.S. 2024 presidential election? Instead of truth, we seem to chase unfounded conspiracies. Instead of love, we seem to choose combat. Instead of silence and inner peace, we seem more attracted to loudness and protest. Instead of trust, we give greater attention to the untrustworthy. Despite the correlation of Uranus to such disturbances, it also seeks the pursuit of truth, even in the midst of controversy. The pursuit of truth often involves working through the challenges of controversy. August is likely to present an abundance of such challenges for many, including the two frontrunners for the 2024 U.S. presidential election. It's already starting. So brace yourself. The arguments for and against impeachment and imprisonment could become hot topics in the media this month. And that concludes this week's newsletter. If you go to the website, MMAcycles.com, and click on that free weekly newsletter, there are some announcements, including the pre-sale of the 2024 forecast book and an upcoming webinar in October. I just have one other thought that I'll tag on to the end of this. This was so comprehensive and well stated, but I've often thought, what does Pluto return for the United States look like? And my argument has been, if something takes 250 years to unfold, it's not going to resolve in a matter of days or weeks or even months. We are so instant in our society these days, and sometimes the sky over our head likes to take its time. And I've even thought to myself that the Pluto return is something that's unfolded literally over decades, but I'm not going to get into that here. But I will say this, that as Pluto in retrograde is making its way back to exactly the point where it was, now I'm going to use the Sibley chart here simply for the purpose that Pluto is in the second house of money, and Pluto in the sky today is just over 1 degree away from that same point back in 1776, that the United States gets its second credit downgrade. When was the first one? 2011. See my point? Pluto's return is slow, and it represents death, destruction, and transformation. This week was not insignificant. Make it a good weekend. We can live on the high vibe side of these aspects. And we'll see you guys tomorrow night for Level Up on Fun Astrology. And MMA folks, thank you so much for the partnership. Have a great week. Stay safe, everybody.